Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. This is episode number 32 of Material Issues. I'm Mark Hershberger, Pop Detective Records, and joining me, as usual, on it's like 1/8 of the Brady Bunch. My good friend from the International Pop Overthrow Festival, Mr. David Bash. How you doing tonight, David?
Hey, Mark. I'm doing well. How about you?
I am doing fantastic. Why, you might ask? Well, on the Facebook group, we just turned over 1,000 members of Material Issues.
Yeah.
The crowd is going a little bit crazy. We got 1,000 members.
We only had to pay 900 of them.
We only had to pay 900 of them, so David and I are a little short on cash for tonight. However, to celebrate 1,000 members, you've seen me wearing it right now, Material Issues t-shirt. We're going to give away 2 t-shirts tonight, and here's what's going to happen. If you're watching the show, if you're a member of Material Issues group, what I'd like you to do is share the fact that this exists and ask your friends to join the Material Issues group. And if they do, when they join, have them drop us a message on Material Issues group page and say, listen, I just joined Material Issues because of so-and-so, a friend who's a member. And the new person and the person sharing will each get a Material Issues t-shirt. So if you want a free t-shirt for the holidays, tell your friends about Material Issues. The first person who has a friend that joins the group and tells us that they're here because of this person, you'll both get a t-shirt. And congratulations, David, on 1,000. And there's Andy. Speaking of Andy Hartley, hey, evening, Andy.
Hey, Andy, good to see you.
1,000 members on the page. That's pretty darn nice.
That's not bad.
That's not bad for a couple of old guys sitting around talking to musicians and things. I'll take it.
Speak for yourself.
I know. I just turned 60.
Of course, by definition, if you're old, I don't know, that makes me like a codger. Yeah.
Older. So
to go Klaatu.
Yeah. And speaking of Klaatu, I hadn't been on the Klaatu Rocks page for quite some time. I just, you lose direction sometimes. There was a French pressing of a 45 for Woody Woodpecker, and the B-side, but the B-side was called Ma Jolly Julie, which is a French cover of Juicy Lucy.
Wow.
And somebody brought it up, and you can't find the vinyl, but there's a YouTube posting of the actual thing, and it's like, Ma Jolly Julie, I can't speak French, but it's probably the weirdest Klaatu related music thing I've ever heard in my life.
So check that out.
Check it out, my Jolly Julie, on the B-side of Woody Woodpecker.
All righty then.
I love it. Someone saying hi, you guys. Hello. Andy's looking forward.
Hi.
Andy's looking forward to the show because he's met Jeremy. Nice. Yeah, looking forward to that.
That's true.
So that's what's going on. Yeah.
I guess I was never a guest.
No.
Although a couple of times when I couldn't keep my connection, I suppose I was a guest because I came in the middle.
Yeah. But you're feeling okay, David, health wise, everything good? You're rocking and rolling?
Okay, ready to I'll make this official announcement, ready to start yet again on January 1st, another diet, lifestyle change. Because every time I lose weight, I put it back on, and I just cannot let that happen again. But first I have to lose the weight again, which I know I can do. The question is, can I keep it off? And the answer is, I damn well better, because, after that, even though it was a false alarm, well, thank you, Andy. Even though it was a false alarm last week when I went into the cardiologist, it just makes me think, if I keep doing this, the next one's not going to be false, and
Right.
we just can't have that. So, starting on the 1st, New Year's resolution and all that, I'm going to lose the weight and keep it off. So,
well, I told you my secret: eat for fuel, not for taste and pleasure. Only eat when you're hungry and your body needs it. And at night, eat a lot of garlic and onions and spicy stuff, because the next morning it all it all comes out quickly.
oh God,
That's my diet plan.
whatever works.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not going to sleep with you, but whatever works.
Never again.
Right. That's what I meant.
I know. It's all good, my friend. It's all good.
Yeah,
You'll be
it's
all
all
right.
good.
You'll do it. Yeah, you'll drop the weight.
Thank you. I think I will. At any rate, we have a fun show tonight because our guest is really, he's one of a kind. That's all I can say. And, while for some people that may not be a good thing, being one of a kind, it certainly is for this man. And he is so many things to so many people, as I'm wont to say. He's a man of God, singer, songwriter, musician extraordinaire, guitar hero, label owner, Jam Recordings, music teacher, wonderful family man, community person, and all that. And he's been doing this music thing for a long time. And to quote him, it's getting better. Would you please give a huge welcome to Mr. Jeremy Morris?
And there he is.
Yes. Hey, Jeremy.
Welcome, Jeremy.
Hi, it's great to be on the show. Thanks for having me.
It's our pleasure. Look, we all have our part of our music collections in the background.
Yes, and I'll try to stand up and get an angle so you can get a clue of the madness back here.
Last time I was at your place, I don't recall seeing all this vinyl displayed this way.
No, I got it all in order from A to Z, and now I can find everything really easy. And so I play records a lot, all the time, every day. And then I play CDs when I'm in the car. So I have a room full of records, another room full of CDs, and then a room full of the stuff from the Jam Records website that I sell. So that's, I stockpile other people's music. And of course, It's the majority of it's power pop stuff. So,
and you got it all alphabetized from A to Z.
Yeah,
that's quite a task right there. I remember when the Deadbeat Poets were at my house, John Corey, who worked for a label, he was going through my whole CD selection, and at the time I didn't have it alphabetized. I was just moving things around, and it drove him crazy that it wasn't in alphabetical order or in some sort of...
Did he alphabetize it for you?
He started working on that. I said, "Don't touch it. I won't know where anything is." So, but I have since corrected the problem.
What was weird for me is when I first alphabetized it, it was harder to find stuff than when it wasn't.
Right, because you knew exactly where something was in a pile. I know that was the way I was.
I paid, Rena and I paid our good friend Brian Adamson to put my records in order, mostly CDs, that I should say. And as you've seen my collection, you know how huge it is, and to have that stuff out of order became really problematic after a while. But I just don't have the patience. So he came and he put everything in order, and it's been extremely helpful. And now I have to put my 2020 stuff in order. You can't see it, but I have a blank spot on the bottom shelf of this box set rack. My box sets are in the other room right now, and they need to be transported in here, put in order, and so I can do my best of lists.
Mm-hmm.
Jeremy may have a couple of albums on my best of list. I'll have to think about that. But I think they'll probably find. I'll be able to find some spots for them.
And I have a very important person with me here in the room, and he has been playing drums and doing recordings with me for about 40 years now. And he is the only person. Can you see him right there?
Yes.
Oh my
Hey,
God!
Dave.
I didn't recognize him since he cut his hair.
Yeah, let's get him in there a little bit. But this is Dave.
How are you, Dave
Hey,
Dietrich?
Dave. Good to see you.
Good to see you guys too. You guys
Nice
have
to
fun.
see you, my
It's
friend.
been-
Yes, indeed.
It's been too long because of COVID, but we'll see you in April.
Yes, that's right.
Yes,
Time ago.
and Dave has stuck with me
Mhm.
for all these years and been a great friend, which I think is an important part of the music, because if you're friends and you're having fun doing it, it really comes through in the music.
Yes,
Jeremy,
indeed.
we're only seeing the bottom of your face right now.
I know. I just was trying to get Dave in there. Yeah, now we're both in there.
And look who else is here.
Hi,
And
Jeremy.
Rita's here.
Hi, Dave.
Hi. Hi,
Good to
Rena.
see you
How are you?
guys. I'm great. Happy New Year almost.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, some of my best times musically were in Liverpool, hanging out with Dave and Jeremy, and God rest his soul, Todd. And
Mhm.
Brother Todd.
And Todd is here in spirit, but Todd always made a joke about the phrase being here in spirit. He said one time there was a show and hardly anybody showed up, and he said, I think there's a lot of spirits floating around in the room because all these people emailed me and said, I can't make the show, but I'll be there in spirit.
Right.
So that's a Todd joke.
That's a Todd joke. I love it. Yeah,
Todd was the joker. He always kept us laughing with all kinds of ridiculous jokes.
Yeah.
So
Since I wasn't going to start off with this, but since Mark brought up Liverpool, I have to ask about the incident. We've got to talk about that. And you know what? Mark knows what I'm talking about. Rena knows what I'm talking about. I don't know what I'm talking about because I only saw it on tape. I was on the other stage. The time when you guys knocked at the end of your set, you knocked down all your instruments. That you got to tell everybody about.
okay, well, it was not planned, which is probably a good thing. And I actually have a bunch of footage from people in the audience. I think Mark actually sent me some of it, if I remember.
I think I did send it to you. Yeah.
And then I got some other footage from people in the audience, and I'm thinking of someday putting it up on YouTube if the cavern won't fire me permanently. But it was definitely anarchy in the UK in the truest sense, because it just was one of those things where the frenzy of craziness started to escalate, and we were doing the stave diving into the audience, and they were catching us and throwing us back on the stage and jumping up and down, and I jumped up and hit my head real hard on the ceiling of that cavern and cut my head open, and blood was running down my face. and that I wasn't trying to be Iggy Pop. It was an accident. And then the crowd went more nuts. And then my daughter got this great idea to start knocking and turning the amps over and throwing the microphones around. And at this point, I was like, what are you doing? But I guess the spirit of the moment of all this organized chaos, we were playing, but I'm bleeding, blood's running down my head. People are screaming. It was insane. It was like one of those things you don't plan, and it went nuts. And I'm glad it happened, because it definitely resonated, and people are still talking about it decades later. But I was then later pulled into a private room and reprimanded severely for naughty behavior.
I just remember thinking, because some of the cavern staff came up to me and said, if any of those amps are broken, you're going to have to pay for it. And I remember thinking, if there's one person in the world who would take responsibility, it's Jeremy. I'm glad it was him, not some young kid band who were going to say, I don't have any money. And then it would have been all on me.
This was how I appeased them. I just said, listen, if anything's broken, I'll pay for it. And
What a time
so
that was.
anyway,
Holy cow.
Hey, listen,
I got to find
David, you remember this? That was the front stage we're talking about. Remember on the backstage, probably the next year, when Jeremy got the great idea during the end of Pop Rules to grab onto that water pipe.
I was just going to bring that up.
Yeah, and it's bending. I can see it on the drums. It's bending. It's going to snap, and he's still swinging back and forth. That was not also a moment that the cavern.
Oh my God!
Jeremy was actually not the first person I've seen swing from that water pipe. I'm amazed that water pipe survives. It's stronger than it looks.
Okay.
Yeah, I really thought the whole place was going to get flooded.
That's what I thought too.
But again, I think with true live performing, if you are living in the moment, there's going to be some stuff that's going to happen, and that's part of the fun of a live show.
It's just funny, though. I think of all the artists and bands and things that have played IPO Liverpool at the Cavern. If you had a trivia contest and you said to David, who's the one artist that was the most destructive? I don't know that everybody's answer would be Jeremy right away.
Yes. And of course, like I said, it wasn't planned. And as long as, I think people know if I break something, I'm willing to pay for it. I have, over the years, broken many things on stage. These weren't necessarily shows that you were at, but one year I got real excited and I jumped up and the guitar came down and hit a cymbal, and the cymbal sliced the neck off the guitar and went flying.
Whoa.
The next thing I knew, I had a headless guitar. And, we just kept going. But we've had a lot of shows like that, actually. I never know when that's going to happen. Sometimes they're just normal and the crazy stuff doesn't happen. But I'm always willing to go for it. And, but I have injured myself a few times performing. There was a big festival here in Kalamazoo in about 2009, and it was that crazy stuff started happening again, and so I got this idea to just run and jump off the stage with a guitar in my hand, but the problem was I didn't realize the stage was about 10 feet high. And so when I hit the pavement, I really messed up my feet, And the minute I hit the pavement, I was like, uh-oh. So I'm trying to be a little less reckless if I can, but it is kind of in me to just do that. I mean, when I was a kid, I was like that. I'd climb up on the roof and jump off it. It sounds ridiculous when I think about it. What was I thinking? It's a miracle I didn't break my leg, but I guess that's always been a side of me. You're in the moment and you're having fun, but
not value added. It's you put on it's not just the music; it's the whole live experience, and that's important.
I think David, if you create a YouTube commercial for your next IPO Liverpool week, I think it's got to feature the destruction of the stage.
I don't know why the Cavern doesn't have that in their promotional video.
I love it.
Speaking of the Cavern, that year that we did that, and we knocked over the amps and threw the mics around, and Stave dived into the audience, banged my head on the ceiling, cut my head open and bleeding and all this nonsense. The next year, in the front of the stage, they put like a barrier, and people came up to me and they were saying, "Look, it's the Jeremy barrier."
And they also have little cushions on the bricks now, so that you don't clunk your head quite so hard.
Yeah, but
I've clunked my head going off that stage so many times.
Yeah, but the stage ceiling is so low the way it curves, and so you can bang your head on it pretty easily.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah,
yeah. But anyway,
good times.
So I was bleeding on stage, and it was like it was the real thing. Got blood if you want it.
Always a good show.
Yeah.
Guaranteed good show.
Since we only have an hour here, let's shift gears a little bit. Even though we could talk about that incident forever, but when take us back to your childhood. Your dad was a professional musician. Did was that very important in the foundation of your musical youth, so to speak?
It was hugely important, because I started very young when I was about 6 with the piano, and my dad was a very well educated musician, jazz musician. He played all kinds of instruments: trumpet, sax, trombone, vibraphone, piano. He knew all these instruments, and he was working with jazz musicians, and he was working with some pretty well-known jazz musicians. There's pictures of me when I'm like 3 and 4 years old with some of these musicians, but he performed on stage with people like Henry Mancini.
Wow.
He was the lead trumpet player for the song Peter Gunn.
Wow.
Wow.
That's why I would always, many times, even when I went to the cavern, I would play Peter Gunn. People probably didn't know why. Why are you playing Peter Gunn?
I didn't know until right now.
Yeah, until right now.
Well, why are you playing Peter Gunn in the middle of a power pop set? It's because my dad played with him in his, his touring band.
Wow.
Wow.
So
That's great.
it was crazy. So I was surrounded by music people, and my dad's sister, whose name is Audrey Morris, was also a very well-known jazz singer, cabaret type singer in the Chicago circuit. So this was just going on all over the place. She had records out on the Chess label, so in the 50s.
Oh, wow.
So there's a lot of stuff there, a lot of history. It's all on my dad's side of the family, not on my mom's. But my dad, what was cool about it was he kind of just was helping me every step of the way to do this music thing. And so I didn't go get a job at McDonald's. I just did music, and it's been that way the whole time.
How did rock and roll enter the picture?
Yeah.
I just was kind of just picking up on whatever I was listening to. So, of course, the early ones that I was listening to, the first record I got was a Beatle record, and my dad bought it for me because I was 5 years old, and they had just appeared on Ed Sullivan, and everybody knows about that, right? It was February '64 or somewhere in there.
Yeah.
But anyway, I saw that and it blew my mind, and I said, I want their album. So he took me right out to the store and bought their album. And then, of course, I wanted every album that came out as it went. and I got them, So I started record collecting actually at age 5. And so the other bands that I was buying at that time that I had albums of, from up age 5 to 10, was I had albums by the Dave Clark 5, Hermits, Every Mother's Son, some of those kind of offshoot bands, and just, and Rolling Stones, of course, too. So I actually was getting these albums as they were being released. So I started really early, and my dad was into it. That's the interesting thing. Even though he's a jazz musician, he loved the Beatles and the Stones and all these, bands.
Mm-hmm.
I probably left out a few other bands from that era, Bee Gees too, when they popped up a little later, but all their stuff. So that was really like my foundation, and I just loved that music. And I left out a very important one. The couple B bands, Birds. I had Birds albums as they were coming out, and I loved those, and Beach Boys too. And I put that in, David, just so you know, Beach Boys.
I kind of assumed it, but thank you anyway.
Yeah, and Badfinger, yes. I bought the Badfinger albums as they came out. When I bought the Magic Christian soundtrack, my mom was concerned. Because she said the name's Badfinger. that doesn't sound good. She thought it was like, flipping somebody off or something. So my mom was more the conservative one, and my dad was a free spirit, and he was. So thank God my dad didn't, go buy the Badfinger album. It's fine. So.
Oh, you see the question, Jeremy? This is a really
Somebody's-
good one.
Okay, was there any one band where you said, "This is what I want to do"? Yes, I had dreams that I was in the Beatles. I mean I was 8 years old, and I'd go to sleep and dream that I got to join the Beatles. So that you say, I want to do this.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
But wasn't it a great time to be young and even a kid? Because David's a few years older than you and I, Jeremy, so he can kind of relate to
What?
being. But seriously,
David
though,
is?
being I'm just teasing David. I like to tease him, but being young in the '60s, and I mean, pretty young, but growing up through the '60s when all that music was on the car radio. When your mom and dad were driving or wherever it may be in the radio, it was just a great time to be impressionable, you know?
It was. And so here's an example of what happened when I got about 11 years old. I decided I was going to dress like the Byrds, and that was not fashionable to do at that time because, we're moving into the 70s now, but I bought the straight-legged jeans and I had the bowl haircut, and I go to school and people were making fun of me and calling me Prince Valiant because of the way my hair looked. I had the bangs going over the eyebrows, so you couldn't hardly see the. Yeah, I had a Michael Clark, Brian Jones haircut. And the teachers say, "How can you see when your hair's in your eyes?" Well, I just thought it was cool.
At what age did you start playing with other people and trying to be part of a group or do things like that?
Age 12.
Wow.
I got a hold of a guitar, and the neighbor played drums, and then I knew a couple other guys, so we formed our first band. We started writing songs right away, and but then doing a lot of covers too, and that just went on from there. I just had never looked back after age 12. But I went through so many band names, and a person just asked me yesterday, "Why do you go by just Jeremy?" I mean, sometimes we call it the Jeremy Band. And I said, I had gone through so many bands, so many changes, so many names. And then I had to start over again every time somebody left and, change the band name. And I said, I'm going to just go by my own name because I know I won't break up with myself. And so if the bass player leaves and then you get a different, well, in the case of Todd, he left literally. But I know Todd would have stayed on because he was with us for almost 20 years.
Wow. He
was great. He was awesome. And he had no plans of stopping. It's just sometimes things go different, So, if I just go under my name, I could keep going,
Yep.
So
well, if you change the name to Morris, then we know there's a problem.
Yes.
Yeah.
I will tell you the name of the first band I had and why I changed the name, and it won't be hard to figure out. The very first band I had, which was in 1972, I believe, was called Full Moon. And
I
thought it was a good name, but we got teased so much. You probably seen the Keith Moon album, Both Sides of the Moon.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, mooning was still a popular thing at that time. You could get away with doing stuff like that. and so when we had that name, the pants would come down and people in the audience would give us the full moon. And so,
As he quickly changed it.
Hard
the
for me
name,
to
yeah.
imagine you doing that, though.
no, I didn't do that. I kept my pants on. I just wanted you to know.
Okay.
Well, that's something you can save for the next IPO Liverpool.
No. I'm not.
We had that
Put my
happen.
clothes on.
Joe Kane. Okay, John Borak. I just outed you, John. I know that's you.
Okay, so
Good stuff.
I'm glad somebody's going to play the new album. The closest you talk about, I tend to be modest, but we were doing an IPO in Liverpool, and I don't think, David, you were at this one, but we decided to do the Joe Cocker rendition of "A Little Help from My Friends" just for fun, and because we're in Beatle land. And Joe Cocker in the early days, he didn't wear a shirt when he sang, and so Dave is on the drums, and before we perform the song, he goes, "I dare you, Jeremy, I dare you to take your shirt off when you sing this song."
Oh man, I was on the other stage. I missed this.
So I did, and I'm glad you missed it, because I don't spend a lot of hours working out or anything like that. But I just did. I just played along. Plus, I was sweating like crazy anyway. But it was good for a laugh. But that's as far as I'm going. I'm keeping my pants on.
We had an act. Joe Kane came down from Glasgow, and he was doing a set, and he was talking about his album, which was at the merch table, and this guy said, if you sign my arse, I'll buy your CD. And and he took his pants down and mooned everyone, and Joe signed his arse, and
there you
He
go.
sold a CD.
but he did sell the CD,
Hey, sold the
whatever
merchandise.
works, right?
I guess that's called
So,
selling
Jeremy,
fast.
when did you record your first record?
I actually recorded my first album in 1977, and I know the phrase album, people, well, does it have to be vinyl to be called an album? I just think of an album as a collection of music. Yeah. And so it was called Invitation. And the very first one was kind of a solo thing. I played everything myself. I reissued it a couple of years ago on CD. And it sounds like baby steps to me, like a person, learning how to record and write songs. So, but I think of it as just part of the whole process. You have to start somewhere. So,
and what year was that, Jeremy? What year did you release your first?
It was 1977.
77. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I was so I was 19 years old, and the funny thing about that is that album, a lot of college kids ended up really loving it when I reissued it, and they're all coming to me saying, "We think this is your best album." And of course, I'm kind of inside rolling my eyes, and then I thought, why are all these people liking that one as the best? And I realized it's because I was at their age when I recorded that. And so what I was writing about, they could totally identify.
Right. Yeah.
Good point.
And I was, at the time, I was a single guy, and I was kind of lonely, and I was writing about, just kind of being a guy who's kind of a loner on his own. And so they heard that, and we like this.
Yeah, like every power pop person.
Right.
Like every power pop artist writing about girls that they don't have.
Right. And that's what I was doing. And I can't write those songs again now.
Right.
I mean, that's the fascinating thing to me about not just recording music, but songwriting is, if you're really doing it for real, you're going to write about what you are going through at the time. And so I turned 64 a couple weeks ago. So now, when I'm 64, you can only be 64 once.
Yeah.
and then you got to write a song when I'm 65 or whatever. But back to you capturing it. When I go back and listen to those early recordings, I remember I was a very lonely person, and I just, I didn't have a girlfriend, and I was just kind of, a very quiet person. And so I decided to put all my efforts into recording music and how I felt at that time. So if I listen to that first album, it takes me right back. I mean, it's like I'm right there at age 19, and I can remember exactly how I felt. And that's what I love about music is, it's you're capturing a moment in time. It's not just, a song. It goes so much beyond that.
Sure. Yeah.
The soundtrack of your life.
Yeah.
So let
So
me ask
what
you
is-
something, Jeremy.
Go ahead, Rita.
You have been one of the most prolific guys. Have you lost count of how many albums you've recorded since that first one, or do you know exactly how many?
I have completely lost count. And the reason that has happened is because if I'm going to sit and look backwards at everything I've done, I won't be working on the next album. And so just in this year, in 2021, which is almost over, I put out 4 albums, and it's all new material that was just recently recorded. And you can thank COVID for that.
Yeah.
Because there was more time to record. And so I just keep going because I feel like there's always something to say if you are writing about what's going on in your life. And so even now, it's just the same deal. I'm writing about what's going on in my life right now.
And as Rena said, and anybody that knows you, you are very prolific. I was curious, what is your process, as you go today and forward, or has it always been? Do you carry a little notebook with you? Do you speak into your phone? Do you record your thoughts on something? Because it takes time to write all this the material.
It's all of the above that
Okay.
you said. I've used my phone. I'm in the car writing. The craziest thing is when a song comes in, I'm in the middle of driving down the road, and I've got one hand on the steering wheel and the other with a pen writing on a pad the lyrics to the songs, and it's crazy.
That's great.
But I do that all the time. I have pads of paper in my car, and I'm writing songs while I'm driving. And sometimes my wife, she's trying to talk to me. I say, I can't talk to you right now. There's a song. The song's coming. So I got it. Sorry, I'll talk to you later, because they just show up. I don't really sit down and say I'm going to write a song. I've never done it that way, and I don't think it would work if I did. If I said, okay, I'm going to go write a song now.
Now, does the music come first for you, or the lyrics, or is it kind of a half and half, or whatever happens?
All of the above.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll get all the lyrics and I have no music, and sometimes I'll get all the music and then the words later. And my favorite is when I hear the music and the lyrics in my head all at once. That doesn't happen as often, but I do love it when it happens. The song I wrote called It's Getting Better, which ended up being one of my most popular ones, that just all came right in my head all at once. I was just, I think, driving my car, and I just started singing it, and there it was.
Yeah.
I love it when that happens. It's easier.
Oh God, yeah. Speaking of
Yeah.
God, I just said that. Of course, we have to ask about this. When I don't exactly know how to phrase this question, but when did spirituality and religion become a big part of your life? Because as a kid, it wasn't so much, was it?
I think people would probably be surprised to know that it actually was there when I was a kid, but it was more maybe something that I felt than I expressed. But I could always feel like there's something, a presence in the room. It's like I could just feel, I don't know, atmospheres or whatever you want to call it. I knew God was around, and I wanted to get to know him and connect with him. And of course, that didn't happen until I got older. But I just always knew that God was there. And I'm not a big fan of religion. Most people, they get to know me, they know that. But I am a big fan of spirituality. And just not to confuse people, when I say religion, I'm talking about the exclusive club religions that exclude everybody else and have a bunch of rules and regulations. And I don't think that's what God's about. I think that's man-made stuff. And I think that
and many people that will have negative aspects towards any religion are thinking in those terms. They're thinking of of what is always broadcast as God and religion. It's not the spiritual side of things, where it is the all and the one, and there's a big difference there. And I'm glad you brought that up. That's really good.
Just to clarify, because some people, you have to tell them what you're not talking about before they'll listen. You have to say, listen, this is what I'm not talking about. Because there's so many things are assumed, and so you mention God, and immediately they think you're talking about religion. But God's not a religion.
Yep.
He's not a religion. People create religions,
right?
And God is, he doesn't need our help. I'm going to help God out today. I'm going to do something for God.
Maybe
that whole mindset's just crazy. I mean, I think it's the opposite. He's always doing stuff for us and helping us, and if we could just connect into that, it's going to be awesome.
Mm-hmm.
But if I think I'm going to help God out and do something for him, now I'm becoming religious.
Yeah. Hey,
so
good point.
I hope it makes sense, because like I said, it took me a while to sort it out. And I had to get off the religious road as fast as I could, because first of all, the religious people couldn't stand me anyway. They, they told me that they didn't like my music. They didn't like the way I looked, the way I dressed, blah, blah, blah. Here's my little poem for it. The religious poem goes like this. You can't do this, you can't do that, and you can't go forward, and you can't go back. Ha, ha, ha. Restrictions, And I'll give you just one line that, I pastor a church, and it's called Freedom. And even the word church, again, has connotations, but believe me, it's not a religious place. But there's a line in the Bible that says, where the Spirit of God is, there is freedom. And I really believe that. And so free to be me, everybody needs to be who they really are, because otherwise it's not going to be good. It's going to suck otherwise.
So your idea of utopia would be like John Lennon's Imagine, but with God and with possessions.
Yeah, we've all heard this saying, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. And see, so if God was the baby and religion is the bathwater, you can get rid of the dirty, stinky water, the religious garbage, and still have God in your life and have a personal relationship with him. I mean, it's not hard, and I think a lot of these musicians do. I mean, why does Brian Wilson write God Only Knows, and then he says, that's a holy song? Why does he say that? Because he knows where it came from.
Right. Yeah.
Right. I mean, how can you not feel that? You feel it. It's in the music.
Yeah, indeed. Well, and speaking of music, right behind me here, Live for Today.
That's the new one.
That's the brand new one, and I've been rocking that. You sent me this. I don't know what, a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, whatever it was.
Yes.
And it's just produced by Ken Stringfellow.
Mm-hmm.
And I gotta tell you, sonically, it is just completely beautiful ear candy, and lyrically as well. It's a wonderful CD, my friend. And I was thinking, Turn to You is that's one of my favorite tracks on the on the CD, and just absolutely wonderful. Thank you for sending it my way, and I highly recommend that to anybody. Pick up brand new from
Yeah,
Jeremy.
I
For
mean,
today.
Ken Stringfellow obviously has been going through a lot. He's had his issues, and people have, people have differing opinions about him. But all that notwithstanding, the meeting of of your mind and Ken's on the last two albums you've done have just really just opened your music up to it's a whole new dimension, and it sounds so good.
It just something that, again, these things aren't planned, but I had known Ken for a while, and again, we can thank COVID for this. But we were both in a situation where everything had come to a stop, and we talked about doing some music together. And the idea was we're just going to try a few songs just for fun, and then it was more than fun. It was like it was just clicking. So we did the first album, and then we got done with that, and he told me, he says, I am having so much fun doing this. And I said, well, so am I, so let's keep going. So we toward the end of this year, we did a second album, and we've already got a third one in the can for 2022, but I'm going to hold that one off a little while because this one just came out. But yeah, we're continuing to record, and no plans of stopping. There's no reason to. And what I love about the situation of working with him is that it's just, I guess, synergy. I don't even have to say what I'm thinking when I write these songs. He knows exactly what to do, and it blows my mind. I don't know how he knows, but he knows.
That's what I noticed. It still sounds like you, but it sounds like a more fuller production version of you that somehow he just gets you.
Yeah, he totally gets it. And so I'll start singing a melody line, and he just pops in with a perfect harmony. And so we've got this thing where we're working our voices back and forth. And when I the first album was finished, I said, do you want to put this under a group name? I said, because, you really are seriously involved in this. And his answer was very interesting. He said, well, I'm just helping you, and I'm having fun doing this. He said, but at the end of the day, it's really your album. So just put it under your name and list me as producer. So I said, okay. And so there you go.
And it works. Yeah. Works well.
When did you start the label? Jeremy, when did you start Jam Records? And was it at the time just a vehicle for releasing your own stuff, or did you always have releasing other artists in mind?
I started Jam Records in 1983, and the indie label thing was kind of starting to surface. You had Enigma starting to pop up, and it was an interesting time. And even Gem Records was still back then going too, not Jam but Gem. There is a Jam connection, but I'll get into that later. But I started it because I didn't, I had gone actually and traveled across the country and met most of the record reps or the A&R people. I went to Capitol, I went to MCA, all these different labels, Island Records. At that time, Ian Matthews was the guy who was signing the people. Wow. Which is interesting.
Right. Yes.
That was his gig, And so I was talking to all these people, and Gem Records was one of them too. But everybody said it's a really nice album, but thanks, but no thanks. And one label, I don't understand why they said this, but they said, we'd like to put your record out, but it's too good. And I thought, what does that mean? They said, because we want to go for a really, indie, rough, super rough sounding. And I said, oh, okay, it's too good. Oh, well. so I put it out myself, and put out the first album. I mean, that was the first one that wasn't on cassette. So I'd actually been doing this, almost a decade earlier, with cassette releases. But I put it out in vinyl, and we pressed up 5,000 vinyl LPs and 1,000 single 45s, and then we made music video and sent it to MTV, and we did everything we could think of to get the music out there. And thankfully it got to people like Jordan Oakes, who reviewed it, gave it really good review. And then I think, David, you read his review, right? Or something like that.
Yeah, I read his review, and back then, there were no email addresses, but he had your mailing address listed there, and I said, I really need to contact this guy. And
and I'm glad you did.
I did send you a letter, and I left you my phone number, and you called me, and we spoke for about an hour that day.
Yeah, and it was awesome.
We had a great talk.
And I had the same experience with Jordan Oakes. We got on the phone, and it was like it started something like this. He goes, "Have you ever heard of Big Star?" And I'm like, "I love Big Star." And then it just went from there, and we found out that, oh, have you ever heard of the Dodgers? All these fans, and that was like my open door to realize, wow, there are other people out there that like the same music as me. And then Jordan immediately went to, have you heard of Shoes? And it's like, I love Shoes. Yeah. So this was really cool to find out. At that point, there was no internet or shows like this, that there were other human beings out there that, and if I sound a little biased, that like good music.
I had the same experience. I had a few friends who were into it, but I didn't think I had no idea how many people across the country or around the world did. And then Jordan opened my eyes with Yellow Pills.
Yeah.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. Yep, indeed. Yeah, and I think it's the same for a lot of us, especially pre-internet days, or when it was just the early part with AOL chat rooms or whatever it may be, and finding not only that but finding music that just you never come across, and all of a sudden here's a whole world, the whole palette that is available to you, and it's been mind-boggling ever since. So as we've always said, if people say that there's no good music being made today, that's completely wrong. There's tons of good music being played. You just gotta open your ears and listen to it.
Yeah, I have another question for you, Jeremy. How did Jam Recordings become this like secret conduit to all kinds of awesome Spanish releases that there's no place else to get in the U.S.?
That's a great question.
Good question. Yeah.
You need to take over for me, honey. You ask much better questions.
Well, David, it's been nice working with you. If you could exit the room.
I order most of my Spanish stuff through Jam.
Yeah. Well, what happened was early on, and I'm going back to the 1980s, I was sending out all these, mailing out records, LPs. It cost $4 back then to mail an album, which is pretty good compared to now, like what, $25?
Yeah.
So I was mailing out hundreds of records into countries like France, Spain, and England. And two countries in particular early on that picked up were France and Spain. And I found out that back in the 80s that there were power pop scenes going on there. Maybe you've heard of Lolita Records. That was an early French label. Yeah. Maybe not, but they were, the power pop stuff was going on in those countries. Of course, there was no internet. And so I started to connect in early on with these labels and develop a relationship with them. And then I found out that they were releasing a lot of cool stuff. So I started a thing. It wasn't at this point distribution. This is the pre-distribution. We would do trading. And so I would trade with these Spanish labels and French labels, and we'd trade each other's LPs and CDs. And then in the early 90s, it all of a sudden I realized I could do distribution. I could become a distributor. Why not help other people get this music? And so Rock Indiana was just forming at that time, and so I was involved with them right from the start. And they liked what I was doing, and I liked what they were doing. So the trading turned into a distribution, and I've been their distributor ever since. And I don't know why more people don't distribute their stuff, because they just are releasing amazing power pop bands. That's my answer.
That's it.
That's great. Yeah, because I always find stuff that like you're the only U.S. guy who has it. I don't have to pay crazy shipping for it.
Yeah, and that's the other thing, with the shipping. But Rock Indiana is run by a guy named Pablo, and he then invited me to, take the band over, and we went to Spain, and we did all the venues across Spain, going into different parts, from Madrid to Barcelona and in between. And then I had a big surprise. I found out there's a cavern club in Spain, in the Zaragoza. And so we also played that cavern. But it's not underground, okay? It's just at ground level, and it's just a building, But it was still fun, and the crowds were insane there, and a bunch of drunken Spanish people can be pretty wild, and people running up to the stage, and this guy keeps yelling at me, play me the Yellows, play me the Yellows. And I was really confused, and I said, I don't understand what your request is. And he goes, it's the opposite of the blues. Play me the Yellows.
Oh, that's deep.
Now, on a lot of these trips, you've gone to Spain, the UK, France. You've ended up working with some of your favorite musicians from the 70s. Tell us a little bit about that. I know Anthony Phillips is one.
Yes, I've been to Anthony's place a couple times, and he's over kind of near the Surrey area. But anyway, got to go in his house and see all his guitars in his studio and stuff. And then, he's a very, very nice gentleman, and he bought me dinner, and we just talked about music. And he said he's considered me a comrade in this war against lousy music. Because his quote was, I like to champion music as an art form. Now, that's a very British statement, but you get what he's saying.
Sure.
And so, meeting him was great, and just the friendship developed there. And he's still going and doing his thing. Anthony is, I think, making most of his living doing music for BBC television programs. He's got to eat too. So that's my story with Anthony. There are a few other musicians that I got to work with, strangely enough, without even meeting them. But there's a guy, his name's John Bundrick, and he goes by the nickname Rabbit. And and he was like he was the keyboard player in Jethro Tull for a while, and then he was also from 1980 until 2015 he was the Who's keyboardist and played on all their albums. So I got to meet him kind of through the internet and got some tracks from him and got to do some recordings with him, and also John Dawson, who was the one who kind of hooked that up. And so, you just meet people, and next thing you know, you meet another person, and next thing you know, it's like IPO. It's like you never know who you're going to meet. And so I had one crazy time. We were playing the Cavern, and this guy's sitting there really enjoying the set, and then I walked up, and it was Joey Molland from Badfinger. And, why is he there? Because he lives in the U.S., right?
Yeah.
And he's sitting there watching our set, and we started talking, and he's a very nice man. And he was over there because of something to do. He was meeting with Apple Records because they were issuing all his stuff, and he's collecting his royalties and, and all that. And then he was very happy when they used his music in the Breaking Bad soundtrack. But you just run into people, and that's the thing that's amazing. It's not a planned thing. You just run into people and you get to know them, and I couldn't plan any of this stuff. It just happened.
People are very drawn to you, and I wanted to close with this because it's one of the greatest things I've ever witnessed. You closed one of the IPO nights on the front stage, you and the band. And I had to go to the backstage to take care of some business. And then when I came back, you were in the dressing room with like 6 people I'd never seen, and you were giving them a sermon about God. And I have no idea how this even happened, but
No kidding.
There you were, and it was so inspiring to me. I'll never forget it.
Yeah,
that's
people
awesome.
were down on themselves, and you made them feel good before they went home. That was just awesome.
That makes me happy. See, I believe this simple phrase that God is love, and so if people just knew that, He's on our side. To quote the Big Star Ballad of El Goodo, God's on my side, and that's in the song, and
Yep.
Why so many people would want, and this is where the religion kind of blows it. Why would people want to represent God as the enemy? That doesn't make any sense. He's for us. He's not against us. And he wants to help us, and he wants to bless us. And I know we all go through painful experiences, but if people can just connect with the fact that God really does love them, it's going to be a game changer. And I guess that's part of what I share with people, because people need to know that. And maybe some do, but there's a lot of people that they're very confused, and they're hurting, and they're suffering, and they have questions, and they say, if God's there, why is all this bad stuff happening? I get that, but it doesn't mean he doesn't care.
Doesn't mean he's not there is the thing. He's always there. He doesn't pull. He's not the puppet master. He doesn't pull the strings and make whatever happen. It happens, and he's always there. It's that's what you gotta.
Yeah. I say this to people because the question I get asked probably the most, especially as a pastor, is people come and say, well, if God is really there, why is all this bad stuff going on? Well, why doesn't he just stop it? And the answer is very simple. He gave all of us a free will. And if you allow a person to have a free will, that means that you have to allow them to make mistakes. And in order for that to happen, that means some bad stuff's going to happen, unfortunately. But otherwise, we just be a bunch of programmed robots going around saying, I must be good. I must be good. I have no choice. I must be good.
Yeah.
So if people can get past that and they don't become offended with the way their life is going, they can make the connection and have a better and happier life. But you have to have a personal connection. You can't do it through someone else. You have to get your own personal connection. And I believe it's in the music. See, that's why I love music so much. Because I believe that all the good music is coming from God. I really do. Yeah. I think he gave us music to help us get through this life.
For sure.
I'm having a bad day. Let's put on some music.
It's a great way to end it. That's a great way to end it.
Perfect way to end it. Jeremy, I'm sure Mark will agree. We didn't even scratch the surface with you in 1 hour. So we have to, yes, Andy, well said. We need to invite you back for another time. Are you good with that?
Yeah. Anytime. I would love to. It's really enjoyable and fun talking with you guys. I love it, and this has been a blast.
Absolutely,
Yes, it
my
has.
friend. Absolutely. Well, we wish you an awesome 2022 coming up. So again, we will have you back on here at another date in 2022. But for those who need to go to Jam Recordings and pick up the brand new Live for Today or any one of the 4 CDs that Jeremy has released in 2021, that's where you get them. But fantastic stuff for your collection. Make sure you pick it up. Jeremy, have a wonderful New Year.
Thank
we
you.
will
God
talk
bless
to you
you
soon.
guys.
God
Thank
bless
you so much, Jeremy.
Blessings.
It's great to
Happy
see
New
you
Year.
as always, and we'll talk soon.
Okay, great. Thanks so much.
Good night,
All right.
Jeremy.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Love to the family.
Mm-hmm.
Well, David, episode
was
number
fun.
32.
And I
Yeah.
knew that an hour wasn't going to contain him, because Jeremy has so many facets to his life. Thank you, Andy.
Yeah,
And
that's
so,
great.
you can't even scratch the surface in an hour with him. And
Indeed.
so we'll get him back and talk more about the label, and more about God, and more about and more about the music he's into. Because we could talk for hours about that also.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
Our tastes, all 3 of us, overlap quite a bit. So
very much so. Yeah. No, that was a very good one. A very well, it's the way we end 2021 with our last show of the year, and our 32nd show altogether. But
one, and
what do we got to look forward to in the new year, David?
2022. Well, we'll have episode 33 with a very special guest, especially for me. Without him, I could say very, very confidently I wouldn't be here today. My dad, Michael Bash,
Nice.
Will be on. And he's not on just because he's my dad. He's had a very interesting life. He's accomplished a lot. And at age 90, he's still very charming, as you'll find out. And he's actually been doing a lot of podcasts lately because of his books. So he's starting to get the feel of it. So this will be really fun. And then on the 12th, as we've mentioned, you'll be otherwise engaged, but which is unfortunate. But the silver lining is it then gives me the opportunity to reveal my top 100 of the year, at the very least, depending on how quickly it goes.
Right.
Maybe I'll then reveal some of my other lists, like top box sets and top single artist reissues or whatever.
You could do a countdown like Casey Kasem, like you used to listen to in the 70s.
I am going to kind of do it that way.
Nice.
And maybe talk a little bit about each release. So yeah. And then
I will kind of be there on the periphery, but I can't be part of it because I'm doing a live basketball game that night. But I'll be around. I'll be listening to the best of myself. So that'll be great.
Hearing the ball swish through the hoop.
Pretty much, you'll hear me go 3. Oh yeah.
I didn't even know they allowed 3s in high school. That shows where
I did not play in the day of the 3-point line. So yeah. It came after me,
Right. And then on the 19th, we'll have the great Dave Faulkner of Hoodoo Gurus. They have an album coming out in early 2022. So we'll talk about that, and of course all the other things he's done throughout his career. Great band. So it'll be wonderful having him on. And then on the 26th, the reschedule of the power pop icon Dwight Twilley.
Wow. Yep.
We'll have him on the 26th. And we're still working on stuff for February. A lot of irons in the fire. We'll have a whole roster of guests for that month pretty soon.
We got some pretty cool things in the works, so hopefully that all works out, and we'll look forward to it. I think 2022 will be a fun year for Material Issues. And,
indeed, it will. It will be our first full year.
Yeah, full year, and we do wish everybody a very happy New Year, a safe celebration, and may you and your family, friends, all be safe and healthy in the upcoming year. And COVID free, yes, indeed. But God bless you all. God bless you, David, Rena,
You too, Mark.
Two of my besties.
Very
I
happy
love
New
you both.
Year.
Yeah,
Very happy New Year. And you and your family stay safe, please.
Very good. Everybody have a great night. Good night.
Absolutely. We'll see you